All right, this is James Gray with another episode of the Mental Warfare Podcast here from the Michigan Institute of Athletics in Brighton, Michigan. Today I have a guest with me who has a strong story of battling with her own demons, battling in her mind. She has a background of being in the military and really just has a great voice and a great message for this day and age. So, Rissa, introduce yourselves. Tell us a little bit about your background. You had time in the military and you're a mom in the community. You bring your son in here to train wrestling. Just tell us a little bit about your story.
Yes, I'm Marissa Collins. I've been in Brighton for, I want to say, 2 years now. My son is in wrestling. All our kids are in sports all across the Brighton community. I assisted with wrestling coach last year, and it was awesome. I have 10 years military service, active Air Force, and then I went to Guard in the Army. And I am an assault survivor from sexual assault from when I was in the Air Force. And I don't believe that the government has our best interest in mind currently.
So I was initially going to start with all the things that have gone on in 2020. It's been a wild year. Mental health is probably something that a lot of people are struggling with right now. But with you referring to your military background and with the Vanessa Guillen event that just took place, I feel like that's a good place to start this conversation. You have a woman that had incredible circumstances that led to her death. And I guess it's a topic that's not covered a lot. I mean, I never really think about what women experience in the military that's so different from men, but you basically have, a group of men and women all shipped off together under a, set of rules and stuff that a normal civilian wouldn't understand and experiencing a lifestyle that someone like me would not understand. Talk a little bit about that. Were you blown away by hearing about this event? Was this some, news to you that you couldn't believe, or is really that kind of something that you experienced when you were in the military?
I'm actually not shocked by it. I know that there are plenty of men and women from all the sharp briefings that we've gone through, the sexual harassment prevention. It happens a lot. They talk about it a lot in briefings, but you're silenced during your career. And if you speak up about it, your career is in jeopardy, your name is in jeopardy, your livelihood is in jeopardy, your mental health is in jeopardy. And people just stay silent because of those fears, and then they battle with those struggles that happen after you go through the mental anguish of, what could I have done differently? Should I have spoken up? With Vanessa, her leadership should have had her back, and they didn't. And she should have had battle buddies to look after her and for them to look after her, and she didn't. And that's sad. It's completely and utterly disrespectful of, what your service means. Like honor, integrity, duty, respect, like selfless service, like all those things, those matter. And when something like that happens to you, that goes out the window. You feel worthless. Your mission is in jeopardy. Like you can't go on with your life anymore. And her situation is just another one of the hidden things that happen in the military.
And when I hear this, I get almost like a helpless or hopeless feeling, because who would you turn to? I mean, if you're in the military and you're entrusting the people around you and your command and the people above you to protect you and have your best interests at heart, because you are sacrificing part of your life and, literally putting your life on the line in many situations to defend what we hold true in this country, to, you hear people thanking military and stuff all the time, but you're telling me that we have a system in place, at least within the military, that is not protecting the women that go in. That's a wild revelation for me to hear, because I guess I just didn't think about it. I haven't served in the military. I don't really know what that world is like. I don't understand the ins and outs, of how things function. So when I witnessed the Vanessa Guillen thing, I think it's like an isolated event, or maybe not isolated, but a very rare occurrence. You know what I mean? Like, oh my God, that's terrible. It's tragic. I can't believe that took place. But you're telling me like there's a serious problem in the United States military with the way that women are treated, the way that, they handle when things go bad. Because I'm sure not all women in the military are treated terribly by the people around them, or maybe it's, a problem that's rampant. And if that's the case, Why are we not hearing about this more frequently? Because, like you said, Vanessa Guillen just took place, and the whole country was, is up in arms, and rightfully so. A woman was lost her life that should have been protected, that should have felt safe, that should have known the processes that she could go through to know that like things were going to be made right. And to hear that like this could be a massive issue where there's, thousands or tens of thousands of Vanessa Guillens that may have not been murdered, but are experiencing the same type of trauma that, she was before her death. Why are we not hearing about that more? Why has that not been talked about for years? Why is this system still in place and not changing?
All right, so the EO is the Equal Opportunity. SHARP is the SHARP representative for the sexual harassment. Those are additional duties in the military. They're not specialized in taking care of that. Yeah, you go to classes, you go to training, you learn about it, you hear about it, but there are some of those people who just have it to get that certificate. Some of them don't have their brothers and sisters' best interests in their mind. It's just something, you're going to go to the SHARP training class. You're going to be our SHARP guy. What? What makes him okay to do this job? What makes her okay to do this job? My partner was a SHARP and EO rep when he was active military in the Army. And, we talk about a lot of the things that would happen. People are afraid to speak out, justifiably so, because when I did, I was like, well, what did you do wrong? Like, those people that are, well, she was wearing this and she shouldn't have been drinking. Maybe she shouldn't have been there. That victim blaming happens constantly. The fear of losing your entire career, you're going to be like, no, I'll just let them know that it bothered me, or I'll just keep my mouth shut about it, because what are they going to say about me? What did I do wrong to let that happen? Maybe I shouldn't have gone to that hotel party. Maybe I shouldn't have underage drank. How would I have prevented myself from being locked in the bathroom of a hotel room with 30 dudes out, cheering on the dude that was assaulting me? What could I have done different? I'm a stupid 19-year-old girl who knows no better, and I don't know how to defend myself at that point in time. So you keep quiet because, well, now you're being victim blamed, and your whole career is like, nope. I stepped away from the Air Force after that. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore.
So you walked away from the Air Force after what took place.
Yep.
There was one major incident, but a series of things that led to that point. Like, had you tried at any point to speak out and say, like, listen, like, there's a problem here. We need to do something. Or was it, like you said, you were just crippled by the idea that if I come forward, they might just kick me out. They might all of a sudden, now I'm to blame for everything. Now I'm that one black mark in the squad that, like, oh, look out for her. Help me understand that better, because I was speaking to a police officer yesterday, and I asked him the question that, like, how do these things happen when you have multiple people? Like, how can a woman be sexually assaulted if you're saying to me there's 29 other people in the room? You're telling me out of the 30 people there, you don't have people stepping up and going, this isn't happening. This is not. What are we doing? Like when an officer, we were referring to the George Floyd incident the other day. How do 3 officers watch one officer torture a man in broad daylight until his death and do nothing? Mm-hmm. That is madness to me. I mean, whether it's racism or sexual assault or anything, if I'm witnessing any of these things, I'm taking action immediately. Like, no, you're a terrible person. This is not taking place. How does that happen? Unless it's just there's a mentality, it almost sounds like when I'm talking to you, there's a mentality in the military that it's like acceptable to some degree. I don't understand.
I definitely think that people are afraid to stand up for what's right in certain circumstances because they're going to be the black sheep. Like, well, if I speak up, not only her, but I will also face the repercussions of speaking out. Why was I there? Like, she probably won't say anything, so I don't have to step in. Everybody was drunk. I don't remember any of it. I was black out drunk. 19 years old. This is my first party after basic and AI, and I'm in AIT. You know what I'm saying? And I don't remember anything. I remember hearing about it a couple days later when somebody said there was a video going around about me. You know, it's we're 12 years later, and one of my other airmen said, I didn't know that was a video of you going around. I had heard about it. I didn't realize that was you. I'm really sorry that I didn't step up and say anything.
Yeah, we have a strange cultural problem where, like, I feel like things like this, it should just be such a widely known, like, you don't commit crimes like this. This is a crime against humanity type deal. Like, you have no right to, touch or violate or anything another human being, but yet it's running rampant. These are things you hear about all the time. Like I said, Vanessa Guillen may have been shedding the light more on what takes place in the military, but you're telling me, like, it's just a known thing. I don't understand how we don't have people. Why? Like, I'm going to use your black sheep reference. Black sheep. That's like the minority. That's the outcast. That's the bizarre. How in the world is someone standing up for a victim the minority in a situation like that? I thought the idea is that people that commit, heinous crimes or crimes in general, they're supposed to be the minority, and the overall group of human beings are good people that go, no, we don't allow that. Hearing stories and hearing, events like this, you're basically saying that no, the reason that people don't stand up is because they would be the minority. They would be the one not going along with what's taking place and it's just acceptable. Let's rewind back a little bit. What initially led you wanting to join in the military? Did you come from a military family? What made you make that decision? Because you probably had a certain view of the military and a certain, like, hey, this is why I'm going in. I want to serve my country. I want to be a part of this. And then obviously that view got shattered when you experienced what you were actually going through. What led to you joining the military initially?
I wanted to be in the military or a police officer since I was a super little kid. I mean, I was a tomboy, so I wanted all the men's jobs. Like, I didn't want to be a princess. I didn't play with Barbies. I was like Sid from Toy Story. Like, let's melt Barbie pieces in my sister's Easy Bake Oven. Not a good thing. Don't do that, kids. My stepdad was in the Navy. He always talked about it, and I thought that was really cool. My grandpa was in the Army. Both my grandpas were in the Army. All my uncles. So it's like a bloodline, basically, of people in the military. I didn't like school. I was like, got to my junior year and was like, I don't really like school. I don't want to go to college, but I got to do something. I made poor decisions my senior year, and there was no way I was going to get accepted into college. I really wanted to just escape from where I was from and who I was around. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to join the military. I'm going to travel the world. I'm going to learn all these things. I really want to kill bad guys. And like, I feel weird saying that, but my goal when I went into the military was to kill bad guys. That's plain and simple. And of course I went into the military to be a cook. The recruiter will tell you whatever they can get, oh yeah, you can do all this stuff. And like, it has nothing to do with why I want to be in. But yeah, as soon as that event happened and I was in trouble for it, like 18 of us got UCMJ'd, and we were all like targets after that. It was actually...
What is UCMJ? Because I'm sure a lot of people listening wouldn't know what that was.
Uniform Code of Military Justice. It's basically the military's own laws. You have to follow those, or you can get in trouble. I mean, you'll get extra duty, you can lose pay, you go to Fort Leavenworth and go to prison if you don't follow these laws, right? We have our own little society. But after that all happened, I was targeted because, she's an underage drinker. Watch out, she's a bad person. Like, okay, I did the crime. I admitted that I was drinking. And then I got ripped out of my room 2 weeks later by the MPs because somebody said I was drinking again. I was asleep. They arrested me. They dragged me down to the police station on base, and they waited 3 hours till my first sergeant got there to give me a breathalyzer, which I blew zeros because I was sleeping. But like that next day, I was like, I want to be separated from the Air Force. And luckily, I found out from somebody that before you hit your 6 month mark, it's not a discharge, you can get a separation. And I was like, we're going to do that. Let's go. I got out. I got married to the love of my life that I met a couple months before that, and moved away and stayed away. And he disappeared completely one day and left me and my child in Oklahoma. And I was like, well, I got to do something. I can't keep working all these jobs, bartending, working on the rail cars, taking cars off rail cars. That was not what I planned to take care of my child. So I was like, we're going to go in the Army. So I went into the Army, and one of the best decisions I could have ever made. And I will tell anybody that if you want discipline, respect, like, I'm not trying to bash the military by these certain situations. What I am saying is, like, you have this awesome family, and there are some shitty people in it. No one has a perfect family. Some of us hate our own mothers or uncles or sisters, brothers, and that's exactly how the military is. I would never go back and change anything.
So when you went in a second time, you had a completely different experience than when you were younger. Is Air Force versus Army, you had a totally different experience, or did you experience a lot of the same things? You were just wiser, you knew how to handle yourself a little bit better, you kind of knew how to navigate the waters, or was the Army like the second time in? Because I had no idea you had two different, terms with the military. That's incredible. Was the second time a lot different for you from that aspect, or did you just understand how to kind of move through it more intelligently?
It absolutely was. Instead of being walked all over and having a victim mentality, like people are going to do awful things to me. If someone made a comment, I spoke up to them, regardless of their rank. I don't give a shit who you were. Sorry. But I would cuss you out. You would not disrespect me. You would not talk poorly about me. I remember a couple different times telling somebody, you know what? I'm a medic. I know how to kill you and bring you back to life. Don't talk to me that way. So it just, threatening the people that were a threat to me worked.
So you went in with a different mindset. You really
Absolutely.
knew that, like, hey, I know what's happened to me before. I know what trying to be quiet and play the, be the good person and avoid conflict can get me. So now I'm going to put my foot down. I'm not going to let people walk over me. I'm going to make sure that, my voice is heard because it matters. Mm-hmm. So, man, that's like a really big lesson for young women to listen to, is like, don't be afraid to put your foot down. If somebody is doing anything out of line, you're absolutely right. They need to be called out immediately. Otherwise, things can get worse and worse and worse. Like I'm sure you've heard the old adage, like, we teach people how to treat us. You know what I mean? If someone starts to push a little bit and they get that leeway, people that want to push will push. But if you put your foot down and say, absolutely not, like, I'm not that person, I'm not the one, now all of a sudden you're making people be more responsible for their actions, because I've now told you there's a barrier here. And if you try to cross this barrier, there's going to be problems. So your second experience in the military was much better.
Much better. I mean, I still experienced the issues. I had a stalker when I was in Oklahoma.
That was the Vanessa Guillen thing, right? Wasn't there? I haven't looked into it enough, but the gentleman was stalking her for a while, and like I said, I haven't really dug into.
After she spoke up about him, I believe that he was, doing all the stalkerish things. Which was scary at first, but he would show up to my work. He would ask my work where I was at. I had to change my phone number. He was in another military unit, and he happened to see me at some annual training, and he just, like, goo-goo gaga over me, which, okay. Then, I stood up to him, but he still continued that. Luckily, I wasn't part of the Oklahoma National Guard anymore because I got into a motor vehicle accident, and my whole career was threatened again because I couldn't walk. So, like, all that happened, I ended up having to join the Michigan National Guard, like, 8 months later, when I could finally, like, put a uniform on and go to work. And I was told, well, you can't really deploy. I volunteered to deploy 5 different times, and I've never deployed. I had a commander tell me, well, I think you'll be a distraction to the men. And I'm like, I am good at my job. I stand up to people. I have a lot of battle buddies. But hey, because I'm decent looking, I can't go overseas because you're afraid that there's going to be issues. You are self-admitting that there is a assault and sexual harassment issue in the military, and instead of standing up for it and being a good commander, you're going to sit down and take it.
Yeah, that's extremely bizarre. That's almost like, in a weird way, I don't want to say supporting it, but you're just like accepting it. You're just accepting the fact that, hey, you know what? These are young guys. They're full of testosterone. They're going to act like that. That's not acceptable.
Silence is compliance.
Yeah, absolutely. It absolutely is. It'd be the same way if you witness someone being a racist and you just choose not to say anything. Mm-hmm. You're allowing that action to continue.
Absolutely.
And it's not like bad people are bad people. So if you call someone out on being a bad person, but that's who they are at the core, they might be more careful about when they display that or just not display it around you. But at least it checks the action. And at least it shows to the people that could be violated, whether it was racism or sexual assault, that you care. Mm-hmm. Because if you don't step up to the plate and tell people, like, this is not acceptable, you will not act in that manner around me ever. You know what I mean? Or around any of us, because it's not right. You're almost allowing it. You're just being like, It's almost that adage, like, boys will be boys, but that's not a natural thing. These aren't natural things. It's not normal or natural to want to put yourself onto other people.
Absolutely. I've told my boys, I have 3, okay? One of them is my bonus child, right? If I ever catch you putting your hands on a woman, you're going to get these hands. I promise you. And you're always going to get it. There's no reason for it. And I hope to God I never have to hear about my own children sexually harassing somebody, because we've been very adamant about keep your hands to yourself, period.
And it just almost feels like a basic morality code. It just seems like from a young age, if you just teach people right from wrong and they're not a sociopath or not disconnected from reality, that it's a basic right and wrong. You would not want a human being to do things to you against your will, right? Do not do things to anyone else, against their will, period. Why is that? Treat other people the way you want to be treated should encompass the wide variety of so many of these issues. And yet here we are having to speak about this. We've just got into this podcast. We're talking a little bit about the military, about Vanessa Guillen, and these are issues that should have been gone decades ago. Millennia. Why do they even exist is a problem. You know what I mean?
I know why. As a child, do you ever remember like a boy hitting a girl and their parents saying, "Oh, he must like you"?
I remember it both ways, actually. Yeah, I remember both ways. Like, because I had a girl that I actually dated later on. Like, when we were kids, this girl was she would hit me. She would steal stuff from me. I have a permanent piece of lead stuck in my hand from a pencil she stabbed through my hand in like second or third grade. It was ridiculous. And only to come to find out later, we dated in high school, that she had just had a crush on me. And that was her way of expressing. So I do hear it from like both sides is,
right.
Whether it's, the boy being in, I don't even know if it's inappropriate at that age, if it's like da-da-da, but it is inappropriate. I don't want to use the wrong words, but what you're saying is basically you're not defining a clear barrier and you're making certain action acceptable. But I also think it's a big stretch from like, maybe pushing someone or acting a certain way to sexual assault. That is a jump. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like maybe when you're a kid and you're like, oh, like you're kind of nervous. You got that butterfly feeling in your stomach. You like this person. You don't know how to express yourself and you act a certain way. I don't know how that translates to something like sexual assault. That I can't make that connection in my brain. But it could come back to when people are, when we're children, parents need to heavily enforce the ideas of right and wrong, good and bad. Just a code of morality. We should all subscribe to some general things. Like whether you want to believe it's from the 10 Commandments or you believe it's from the universe, we all know like not to kill each other. We know stealing things from each other is bad. We know, touching someone against their will is a bad thing. Like these should just be universal concepts. And yet here we are. You've had a couple experiences with the military and you're basically saying, all women that go into the military take a serious risk at least having someone be inappropriate towards them.
Absolutely.
It's not random, few, far between thing. It's a system problem.
Absolutely.
That's nuts. Because I would believe that if a commander or someone high up in the ranks wanted to earn respect from all the females in the thing, and actually all the good males, they would take really strong, aggressive action against any time they witnessed events like that. Now, is it because it's happening kind of like behind the scenes, off to the side, at the parties that the people are not aware of? That you think that there's not as much action? If you were out in front of your squad, or like I said, I don't really know the terminologies that well, but a commanding officer witnessed a man being inappropriate to one of the females, does he take immediate action? Does he punish that guy from that? Is there a huge deal? Do you think something takes place like that, and that it's the fact that it's kind of like behind the scenes that it's not changing? Or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I can definitely say that even if it happens in a group where somebody makes a comment, not everybody's going to stand up when you're on duty or off duty. And you just I was able to adjust. I could talk with the boys and talk about girls that have nice bodies, just so I didn't feel like I was going to be pushed to the side because, ooh, she's not safe to talk around. I wanted to have my group of comfortable people that I like to be around. And like, as a medic in a field artillery unit, that was the best family that I had ever been a part of. Now, we had raunchy jokes, we had terrible things, we made worst memes, and we'd be like, civilians could never know we're saying this. It was joking, And I look back at it now like, maybe that's where we stop it, But I have a feeling that none of those people that I was with in my medic area, like, they would ever do anything to harm anybody, And it was just like pure, like, dark humor. But yeah, there's females all over that are standing in uniform, and somebody will make a comment about how damn they look good in their uniform, or you fill out that real well, and which shouldn't have to be taken. You should be looked at like equal partner, not as a sex idol, and it doesn't happen. It's kind of sad.
Yeah, and in today's culture, I mean, there's like that cancel culture where if somebody 10 years ago said something that the mob considers slightly inappropriate, they want their home life destroyed, lose your job. You see it all over the news right now. We see people, professors losing their jobs, celebrities losing, like tons of people 10 years ago made it what they might have felt was a joke. And a lot of them, when I've looked into them, what people have been fired over are incredibly mild, like incredibly mild. But you're saying there's like a culture that exists of this like dark humor and like, oh, we don't really mean it, but we mean it. Maybe that is where we actually combat it, because even just allowing those things to be an ongoing thing, that it's, oh, we're just joking, that almost opens a doorway. You know what I mean? You're opening a doorway to one person isn't joking as much.
Absolutely.
They're more serious.
And how do you know if everybody in your area is, these are jokes, or, hey, yeah, this is my group of people. They're going to be easy targets, Yeah,
100%. So I want to talk a little bit about the madness that 2020 has brought, because it has been a wild year. So first, on the topic of mental health, you went in the military. It sounds like high hopes. This is going to be my way out. I'm going to travel the world. I'm going to have this unbelievable experience. And about, under 6 months, you left that because like your idea of that reality was shattered. What you thought you were going into, unfortunately, it took a different turn, and you had to go a different route. How has that affected you, as a person, like to have that reality shattered, and to have some people that are close to you that, like you said, these are supposed to be my family now. This is the people that are close to me now. And how has that affected your mental health? And then what has 2020 been like for you, where we had a global pandemic, we have all these things in the news every single day. It's fear, 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 negativity. Now, I mean, just yesterday we saw the government's, mandate, or the governor's mandate about you must wear a mask anywhere. Like, we're not wearing masks right now. We're criminals. You and I are criminals right now. We're inside a building and we're not wearing a mask.
find a police officer to support that around
You
here.
know,
You ain't gonna find it.
it's just madness. This year has been crazy. So just talk a little bit about the journey of mental health. What was it like to be a 19-year-old woman that, went in the military? You took a brave jump. You had your reality shattered. You went back in the military. You stepped back up to the plate. You changed your mind a little bit. Like you said, I was more confident, put my foot down more. And then what has this year been like, trying to, as someone that struggled with mental health in the past, what has this year been like? And for your family, like, what has it been like for the children and just in general, 2020, try to.
Well, before 2020 even happened, I lost my job. I was working at U of M, and I lost my job during a court battle with my ex-husband. And I was in my first 90 days, and I had to go to court so many times that they actually fired me. And, now they admit, after I requested a board, oh, we shouldn't have fired you, but you were absent. Yeah, court, it's great. So, like, before even going into 2020, I was, like, kind of beat down and, like, how am I going to fix this? How am I going to have an income? How am I going to have goals? Where am I going to focus my energy on? So I was like, well, we'll focus on the kids, all 4 of them. I will be able to be more present in their lives, and that's fantastic because working took all that away from me. I decided to go back to school, and I searched around different schools, applied for all these nursing schools, and decided on Jackson College, basically just because the cost. It was way cheaper than any of the other universities. And I started doing college. Then 2020 happens, and let me tell you what, it's been a roller coaster of emotions. I actually started 2020 off really good before the lockdown. I went down Florida with my partner, was in one of my best friend's weddings, and it was like, this year's gonna be great. And then a week later, I'm like kicked in the teeth, like, no, we're sending your kids home. You can't go to college anymore. Everything's gonna be done at home. Everyone's freaking out. And I'm like, I'm so overwhelmed. I gotta teach 4 different kids, 4 different grades. I gotta teach myself college. I gotta stay home all the time. I am a super extrovert. I love talking to people. I love going places. I'm an explorer. And then everything just like came crashing down. And I'm like, okay, well, let's find out what to focus on while we're here. Me and my partner were like, well, let's fix some stuff up in the house. Let's do cook-offs where the kids and we all had teams of we're going to bake and following all these trends that were happening of gardening and baking and puzzling. And I started doing art, which was a fantastic outlet for me because I apparently am pretty good at it. My partner and our relationship grew tremendously. Like, we were able to talk more, be around each other more, spend more time with the kids, and it just got really monotonous after a couple weeks. And after like 3-4 weeks, we were like, we're done. Like, we can't do this anymore. We've been following the rules. The news is all negative. Like, everything's just bad. And I couldn't even get onto Facebook without reading just straight negativity. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll just remove Facebook from my life because that's bringing a lot of negativity into it. And I felt good for about a week, and I was like, okay, I can get back on Facebook. And bad idea. It's still awful, right? I started seeing myself like, he goes back to work. I'm dealing with the kids every day. I don't want to get up and clean. I'm really overcooking. I really just want to like take the kids places and do stuff with them. Am I failing as a parent? Am I doing good as a partner? My grades are dwindling now because I don't know how to teach myself this stuff. Online classes are like, I'm reading my computer. I'm sorry, but my ADHD doesn't work like that. I cannot read slideshows for 6 hours straight. It's not how I learn. I'm a hands-on person, and like, just everything seemed to fall apart. And I'm very happy about getting good grades. I went to a 3.5 GPA I'm sitting at like barely a 2.5, and I'm frustrated with it. I want to go back to school. My kids want to go back to school. Seeing my kids cry because they miss their friends was devastating. And at first I was just, ignoring my mental health, which was awful, by trying to fill it with all these things that are tools to help with your mental health, but they're not the tool. So me and my partner were realizing finally, like, okay, he's in mental health care because he has severe PTSD, right? I wanted to do couples counseling with him. So we're doing couples counseling because when both of us have our anxiety, we're both emotionally responding, we're not factually responding to anything, and it creates this border and becomes hate. It starts to become like, he's after me. He just doesn't understand. He doesn't love me, like all these things. So I started going back to therapy, and they're like, okay, well, I had 2 therapists, and they're like, we're going to see you twice a week. Where are you at right now? Like, they'll call me, where are you at? Are you safe? How you feeling? Like, because I was at the point where I'm just like, I kind of just want to give up. And I didn't even understand why, because the only thing that kept me going was these kids' happiness. My partner, if I were to go and commit suicide, like, my kids wouldn't have a mother. My partner wouldn't have a partner. His kids would be devastated because I'm taking away their new siblings. We've been together for 3 years now, and I would just like destroy the world, right? So I'm glad I went and got help. And I'm such an advocate for mental health that like I push everybody to it, but I wouldn't get it myself because I couldn't face my demons. And I couldn't figure out what's wrong. But I don't really have time to go to a therapist. You have to make time. You absolutely have to make time because your mental health matters so much to you and the people around you.
You're somebody that I could tell that has struggled with things in the past, because there's a weird common denominator I find in people that have had a lot of mental health struggles, and it's usually that they're really energetic, extroverted. They try to make people happy. They try to make the world a better place. Like every time you've ever come around for wrestling or anything like that, you're always like, oh, hey, well, you're always like that good energy. And the weird thing is I usually see those people as being people that have a really damaged past, because once I feel like you battle with depression and, like you said, you fight your own demons over and over, you just don't want to see that in other people. You want to see the world be this beautiful thing that you believe it can be, but you haven't really experienced before in the past, or you've had and you desire that, but it's because you know what the other spectrum is like. Mm-hmm. A lot of the times the people that I find that carry the energy that you have are the ones that have had to fight to have that type of mentality and mindset. Like my mother committed suicide when I was young. So when you're speaking on this topic of like, if you were to give up, that's your children have to face the world alone. That your partner is now having to deal with not only everything that he currently carries in his life, but he would have an incredible, anchor strapped to him on top of this, another weight of the world to carry. And now the expectations of all these children to be the leader figure that's going to be there for them. Life is, although it is wonderful and beautiful and special in many ways, it is a brutal event so many times. And so many times, when you don't combat your mind, it wins because you can't escape from yourself. You know what I mean? And that's something that you just touched on, is a lot of people, I don't have time. I can't go see a therapist. This should be your number one priority. If your mental health is not in line, nothing's in line. Absolutely. It might seem like it's in line, but it's not, because you're teetering on an edge. You know what I mean? It's like you have a wound that needs surgery, but you just keep avoiding it. Or you throw something over it like, oh, that's all set now. But it needs surgery. You need to re-engineer your thinking processes and, look at your life in proper perspective and let go of past trauma and pain and start reevaluating, like, what do I want out of this life? How do I achieve those things? What brings me happiness? What do I hold on to that is worth letting go of? You know what I mean? And these are issues that I feel like if more people just spoke about them and realized that like so many people carry the same battles, you know what I mean? All from different platforms, all from different angles, but everybody is fighting their own fight. And if we made it more normal to sit down together as people and discuss like the difficulties and the struggles, like 2020 has put the whole world into a crazy spiral. And now everyone's against everyone. Like, if I was out in public today, I don't have a mask on, people might look at me and be like, there's a bad person. You know what I mean? So instantly we're going to be more divided. You have Black Lives Matter and you have people that are going up to them saying all lives matter. And then the woman 24-year-old girl just got shot in the head over that.
I saw that.
Over saying all lives matter.
I can't.
Now, like, people that support the Black Lives Matter thing are going to say, well, you were undermining the message. You were taking away from our power. You just took someone's life. Not you, you're probably not you listening to this thing, but someone that supports your cause, that's a part of the Black Lives Matter movement, thought they were justified enough by someone saying all lives matter to kill that person. That's madness. That's why, like, when we had the protests in downtown Hell, I went and I supported the idea that, like, I believe everybody should be treated as equal. I believe there's good people of every color, creed, status, and there's bad people of every color. But I won't align myself with any movement. And it's because I don't know all the moving parts of that movement. I don't understand all the things that they do, all the things that they do support, and I may not be fully in line with that. So if you don't see me standing on the side of the road with a Black Lives Matter thing with my fist up in the air, it's because I don't understand all the moving parts. If you support defunding and abolishing the police, and maybe that's, let's say Black Lives Matter took a stance, and I'm not saying they do or don't, but if they took a stance and said, we support abolishing the police, well, then I don't support that. I don't support. So I can't stand with your movement. I stand with the ideology of people should be treated as equals.
Absolutely.
I can stand with that, but I can't blindly follow. And I think like that's where a lot of the problems come into play is when people unite with like, oh, yep, I'm going to defend this to the end. No, you're a person that should be trying to solve complex problems throughout time. So when we run into difficult events, we should be trying to solve them together as people with a core of compassion.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And I feel like we get so into this team mentality. Right now it's blue versus red, white versus black, Republican, Democrat, the mask wearers, anti-vax, vax. Like everything is just a team. Mm-hmm. So what would normally be maybe two sides of an argument has been split into 57 different categories of people that all think that everybody else is the problem. That's a problem.
Yeah.
What if we were just people that have different opinions, but we should all be able to agree on certain common grounds, like sexual assault? That is not an acceptable thing, and everybody should be on that page.
Absolutely.
Killing another human being, regardless of what they said. That woman said all lives matter. She should have been able to come up to you and said, I think you're a piece of shit. You're not a good human being. She still doesn't deserve to have her life taken from her.
Absolutely. That's a freedom of speech.
100%. Freedom of speech is under attack right now.
Absolutely. And you have the freedom of speech, but you also have to remember whatever you say, there's going to be backlash for it. But you should never, ever fear your life for your freedom of speech.
100%. We've gotten to a culture now where people are so easily offended and so emotional versus logical that that person probably in a rage was like, how do I deal with this? I kill this person.
Emotional reactions.
That's madness.
That's insane.
That's madness. You need to remove your emotions from things. Or, you know what? It's okay that someone has a different opinion than you. Mm-hmm. It's all right. Deal with it. If you can't deal with the fact that although you're standing and saying, oh, Black Lives Matter, any good human being would say, yes, Black Lives Matter, so do white lives, so do tan lives, so do orange lives. And then you could also articulate the argument further. Well, these people are experiencing a certain level of oppression that these people are not. 100%. Let's support that. Let's try to eliminate these things. Let's stand together. But no one from any group should support one human being killing another human being over words that came out of their mouth. You know what I mean? That's not an acceptable part of culture. So we're getting to this point where emotions are leading things. You're allowing people to just get riled up to the fullest, and then part of the protest, buildings get destroyed, an elderly man and woman get the hell beat out of them with the thing. I watched that guy in Texas. They gang beat this gentleman down in Texas. One guy pulled out a massive rock from a bag. He was carrying a big bag. He pulled out a huge rock and full force threw it and smashed the guy in the face. Probably shattered his jaw down on the pavement. I don't know if the guy died or not, but it was one of the most gruesome videos I've ever watched. Those are emotional things. That's where you're creating a symbol out of that man. That's a man trying to defend his business or trying to protect his family or, just is against what you're doing. You're turning him into a symbol. He is like representing all the impression you feel, all the anger you have. You've probably never met that guy in your life. He's never done anything to you at all, but you're creating this like emotional rage and then you're channeling it at someone or a business or an institution or there's people, you went in the military to defend this country and what it stands for. There's people that stomp all over the American flag, right? They'll burn it. And this is going to be a tough thing probably for you to hear from me. If you support freedom of speech, you almost have to allow them. If they want to burn a symbol or trash a symbol, it shows a lot about their character and it shows a lot about them as people. But if you're going to ask for your right of freedom of speech, you almost have to support their freedom of speech. And now you can say, yeah, but those are the people that fight for you to have that. Yeah, and they are expressing it. And although it might trigger that emotion, we have to develop the ability to go, oh, that infuriates me, but I can't physically harm you for expressing yourself. If anything, the best thing you could possibly do would be to try to have challenging dialogue with that person. Be like, why are you doing this?
Absolutely.
Where is this from? What oppression do you experience or pain are you going through that I don't understand when I dedicated years of my life to serve this country, to try to promote a good place to live for all of us, and you're stomping on the symbol that I believe I fought for? Like, if we had that compassion and that ability to not because right when I started saying it to you, I could see in your eyes that look of like, I want to smash that person. And it's very hard to contain those type of emotions, but I feel like that's the answer. We have to start removing the initial and figure out what is the common ground. What is this person, what is their life story that has led them to a point where they're standing in the middle of the road, walking all over the American flag, knowing.
Who hurt you?
Yeah, knowing without a doubt that is going to trigger other people into an emotional feeling.
Absolutely.
And and this is going to sound weird for me to say, and I don't think I've ever said this on podcast before, but when I watch Facebook, I think some people just enjoy getting other people upset. Like when I watch people that, they just put memes and things like that purposely are hurtful. They want to harm other people. And if you're listening to this, it might be you. I see people that put up things that they absolutely know
it's going to rile some
is going to really hurt someone. Like I said, someone trampling the American flag, or there's a Black Lives Matter supporter and someone else jumps on there and say, yeah, well, all lives matter. They're doing it just as an attempt, instead of being like, why are you taking this stance?
Scroll past.
Yeah, there's a weird thing now where it's like, maybe, there's an old saying that goes, hurt people hurt people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's how you get the emotional response instead of like a good fact-based response to a situation. Lil Wayne, when he stomped all over the flag, I was like, that's nasty, dude. Do whatever you want. You ain't going to stomp a flag in front of me because I'm going to speak up about it. But I'm not going to sit on Facebook all day and be like, he shouldn't be stomping flags. And it's an important piece of cloth that, yes,
it's a symbol.
Absolutely laid my life down for. But you're right. You have the freedom of speech. Doesn't mean I have to like you for it.
Sure.
Doesn't mean I am going to come and fight you over it. I might have some words for you.
And that's your freedom of speech in return. You're able to voice your opinion about what they're doing.
There's always consequences of your freedom of speech.
100%. We need to work towards being a culture that is, not so easily offended, that's willing to have dialogue, that's willing to have people with different opinions, that wants to work towards the progress. Like, okay, you're trashing this flag or doing these things. What do you want? What are we looking for? What is wrong? Because listen, I've traveled all around the world. I've been to the favelas of Brazil. I've been to rural China. I've seen the way that people live. You have it pretty good here in America.
Absolutely.
Are there bad spots in America? 100%. Are there bad people in America? 100%. Is there examples of racism and sexual abuse? 100%. But just by rolling the dice, the fact that you were born in America versus a third world country or some of the places around the world, you already have an advantage over a lot of people. So now, instead of just focusing on all the things that you hate about this country, let's create the full perspective. Let's be honest about all the things that are great about our people and our area, and let's talk about the things that need change, but let's do it in a productive manner. Let's try to actually fix things by coming together. Because if you if I trample the flag and then you scream at me and then I say you're this and then I say that, we're not going to make any progress.
No way.
We're not going to make any progress. You know what I mean? And when I saw all these protests breaking out, businesses getting trashed, people getting smashed, and people are going like, well, you know what? Sometimes there has to be violence. Man, I just don't feel that way, because I feel like if you're doing that, you're a bad person. And why would I follow your lead to change? You know what I mean? Well, yeah, through, people are going to say the Boston Tea Party, they threw the things. Listen, okay, this is not the revolutionary times that they were back then. We can communicate now. We've progressed as a species. We can interact with anyone in the world almost instantly. Like if you're listening to this podcast, you're listening to, a message from two people sitting in a studio in Brighton, Michigan, wherever you are in the world. We can communicate. We've learned to progress as people. We need to come together and solve complex situations. We need to not emotionally react and write things off as like, oh, well, you know what? It's collateral damage type deal. Like there's one other example that really like crushed my heart is in Missouri during the Black Lives Matter thing, that a police officer, he was a black gentleman, that got shot in the face and killed, and they had it on Facebook Live. I saw the video of on Facebook Live a guy dying on the side of the street, a former police chief, and just killed during the protest. That's not acceptable. It is so within your right to protest things that you do not agree with. It is so in your right to speak the way that you believe you can enact change and bring people together for a powerful message. The second you start violating what we all agree upon, you can't harm people, you can't destroy businesses, people are being murdered and people are almost, it's time for change.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like that black guy's life mattered.
No, exactly.
At all.
100%. And like I said, it's dangerous because you don't want to undercut good movements.
Absolutely.
But because like you could say like, well, what about all the lives of, look at the people that have been just killed in Chicago, New York, Philadelphia over the last like couple of weeks during all of this stuff. My cousin is a police officer in Philadelphia. He told me they're on track to have like the worst year for murders in Philadelphia's significant history.
160% uptick.
So that's incredible. Wait a second, like whether you're saying Black Lives Matter or All Lives Matter, anything, lives should matter. Yeah. So if we're killing people all over the board, you know what I mean? And I don't think that it's a large problem due to racism. I think that we have a problem of bad people not being put in a check within systems. So I was talking to my cousin Shane and I said, like, why are these people not in prison? So many of these people that have reoccurring issues over and over, and they're already been violent offenders. And he said to me something, which I don't even know if he wants me to reveal this on a podcast. I'm sorry, Shane, if you didn't want me to say this, but it is what it is. He literally said, listen, our mayor and attorney general, they don't even want to prosecute people. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, it's racist. I'm like, what do you mean it's racist? He's like, we've gotten to a time now where they're afraid to prosecute people because how will the media spin it? Mm-hmm. Listen, a criminal is a criminal. If you physically assault someone or destroy things, you're a criminal and you deserve to have punishment for that. If you don't like that, tough luck. That's the system that our entire, culture subscribes to. If you kill someone, you go to prison. We subscribe to that theory. So it doesn't matter if it's, oh, yeah, well, they said this to me.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. You're going to go to jail now. You're going to be tried by a jury. You have certain rights that you'll get, but then you're going to go to prison for what you did. It can't turn into the fact of, well, I was justified because this person said that. Because then instantly we're almost creating an anarchy. Just do whatever you want, and as long as you have a good excuse for it, whatever.
Absolutely. Excuses are everywhere now. Oh, I can say this because this happened. Well, no. Or I can do this because, but no, that's your opinion.
Yeah.
And it's an excuse. And we have laws, and you have to follow those laws. And one of the things, like, somebody said to me, oh, first world problems. And I said, yeah, I live in a first world country. There's a reason I live here. There's a reason this is allowed to be a problem. Duh. 100%.
And I feel like, maybe I'm getting conspiracy theory to say this. I feel like the fact that this is an election year and November's coming up is 100% involved in a lot of the stuff that's going on in the nation. It is, listen, people at a very high level understand people. They understand psychology, they understand sociology, they understand that people in general are driven by their feelings. So if you can incite serious feelings towards something and then move the herd in a direction, you can enact change. If you can get everyone on board, whether it's Black Lives Matter or any type of movement where it fires the mob up, it gets everyone on board. They're angry, they're ready for change there. And then you go, the answer is vote out this person. And those people go, I have an objective on November. I vote out this person. I did my part. I don't think that it's coincidental that it's an election year. I don't think that this stuff is all just like, well, it just fell into place conveniently right before the most important thing where there's a power struggle going on in the country where one side is going to take over. Surprisingly, all of these events are taking place. And ironically enough, they're all being their calls to action. You're trying to get people to go and do something in response. I just can't wait for November. To be honest, I can't wait to get it over.
Yeah.
And I'm spoiled. I'll tell you right now, inside of the walls of this building, life really isn't that different. You see people coming in, they're interacting with each other, they're hugging each other, they're happy to see each other, they're shaking hands. They're trying to live their life to the best of their ability, regardless of what's going on outside of these walls. So I feel like a lot of the world is in chaos right now, and I have like this weird bubble that I get to live inside. You know what I mean? Because like we're not social distancing.
Right.
We're not hating the people across. Like actually, one of the instructors that I teach with, him and I had the furthest apart opinions on COVID that you could possibly have. Like while he was on one side of the spectrum, I was on the other, right? And we were not even close. And even on some of the other issues that have come up, we're nowhere near each other. You know what we do when we see each other? We shake each other, say, hey, what's up? How are you, man? Good to see you. All right, let's get these guys going. We treat each other as people. We have different opinions.
Absolutely.
Right? We subscribe to a different theory of information, and we back that with different reasoning. But we're people. We're able to have those opinions as long as he's not trying to harm me or my family or the people around me, and I'm not trying to do the same to him, then we respect each other. You know what I mean? So like I've gotten sheltered, but I can't tell you what, I cannot wait for November. Let's get this thing over with. Let's get back to life. And if anything, one thing that I will always say that I have hope for, and maybe it's a false hope, is I always hope that in incredible times of difficulty and stuff like this, that people can learn. That people can learn from the way that COVID was handled. The people that can learn the way that the media's given them information. People can start to see reoccurring trends and common denominators out of the news just shoving certain information down your brain and start to wake up from that and go, wait a second. Is this productive? Is this conducive for me having good mental health? Is this helping me enjoy a better life? Is this bringing me closer to the people in my community? Is this making me a better father, brother, husband? Is it doing these things, or am I going down a dark hole because of what I'm experiencing?
Absolutely.
So I really have faith that, if people can learn from what 2020 has brought us, and people can learn from words and what they're experiencing, and that's what really fired me up about getting this podcast going again, is like, we need to talk more.
Absolutely.
We need to come together. We need to talk. We need to even get a little emotional, and it's okay because we can work through things. You know what I mean? Like as a fighter, a lot of fighters and martial artists are very, very calm people because their fight or flight instinct is turned so down. Like a normal circumstance that might incite an incredible emotional reaction of someone and then they blow up doesn't really happen. If you're a professional fighter, combat and things are so normal. It's normal for someone to try to strangle me to death. You know what I mean? On the mat every day, they'll try to rip my head off my shoulder. That's a normal experience that I've gone through.
Abnormal norepinephrine levels.
Yeah, so it's a normal thing. So I'm not under that extreme roller coaster of emotion where I'm like too ice cold. I can be honest. One of the character flaws that I have is I have like no emotion in most situations that I probably should have emotion. You know, I'm just like because I'm able to, whenever something is difficult, I'm able to objectively take all my emotions out of it and just look at the facts, because that's how I like, it's probably a coping skill that I picked up from my mother committed suicide when I was young. And then I was in a relationship for 2.5 years. My parents moved me across the country. It was like the love of my life. Thought I was going to marry this woman. She committed suicide. We tried to make a long distance relationship work. She ended up hanging herself. It was too much for a young man to comprehend. Like, it put me into the darkest place ever. The fact that I'm still sitting here today is actually a little bit of a shock, because like even my parents have probably never heard this. I don't even know if they'll listen to this podcast, but I had several times in my life where I contemplated suicide to the degree of like, I left school one day and it's like, is today the day I kill myself? I got to that level. So as like a coping mechanism, I think what I learned to do is learned to be like, okay, let me remove every way that I feel from what's taking place in my life. I'm going to pull all my emotions out, and I'm just going to look objectively like, what is my life? Who am I? What am I doing? What is possible for me in the future?
What are my goals?
Who do I want to be? What do I want this life to become? And in a weird way, learning to do that completely changed me as a person. But now it's like, it's almost a switch that I can't just flip on and off. It's just I'm usually no emotion. Or if I do, it's like a little spike and then it just goes right away. You know what I mean? And it's not good because you should be fully being enveloped in this world. You know what I mean? Like you should be feeling the highs and feeling the lows and having the enjoyment of the roller coaster of life because we get one shot at this thing. You know, so...
As an empath, I can definitely say I'm complete opposite of you, where I can like watch a commercial that's sad and like tears will be rolling down. Like, okay, come on now, pull yourself together, or like, you know, get angry when there's somebody angry for a good reason, or you know, feel other people's emotions so tremendously that it actually affects me negatively. Like.
See, that's something I can't understand
emotion.
at all. Like that's fascinating to me. So, because let's say people are getting riled up and they're fired up about something, I feel nothing.
I'm in the back, like fist pump.
Yeah,
Ooh,
like I can understand why that person, like if I watched a video, like I can understand why they feel that way, but I can't feel it. So it's like I only know it based on like, well, if that was me or someone I love in that situation, I understand why they would feel the way that they feel, but I don't feel it. So it's like to hear people from the other spectrum being like, no, like if I see something that makes someone angry, it makes me angry. I don't have that. I like lack that trait, and I can be honest and just say I don't have that. So it probably has pros and it has cons. Like it has pros in the way that like I'm able to not have any emotion at all and just look at it as a logical thing and say like, how do I dissect this for information to then derive a correct solution? Like I'm almost like just a mathematician. I just look at life as like numbers and formulas and I just dissect it, versus you're saying that when like, it's probably why when I mentioned like if I saw someone standing on the flag, even though I love this country, I love everything it stands for, it wouldn't trigger the tiniest emotion in me at all. I'd be like, I wouldn't do that. You know what I mean? I wouldn't do that. But like, why are you doing that? What are you expressing? Like, and you, exactly as I was saying it, I could see in your eyes, you got this of like, don't you dare do that. You know, and it's such a, that's something I'd probably want to do a podcast on in general, is like, what is it like to live as an empath? Because there's so much pain, there's so much suffering, there's so much damage in the world. If you turn on the news every night, you'll have something to cry your eyes out every single night.
I can't watch the news. I literally have to tell my partner, because like he'll be up before me. He's a morning person and I'm the night owl. So like if I wake up and he's sitting next to me watching videos, he might start my morning with da 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 da, like a machine gun of anger about something he's reading, and I have to tell him like, and I learned how to do this finally, and listen, I can't start my morning with that. I can't talk to you about that right now. And I feel sometimes it upsets him because he thinks we're gonna shut you down. I'm not intentionally shutting you down. It's just I can't handle that emotion the first thing that happens when I wake up.
That is so fascinating. It actually, you're like making me understand my girlfriend more, because my girlfriend is exactly like I'll go to watch a video or something, and to me I'm literally just taking in information, and then I'm like working through that information, and she reacts to it, and in my brain I'm like, what are you doing? Like, what? I don't understand. But now like hearing you say that, it might just be the way you're wired. The way you're wired is literally to feel the experiences that you're witnessing versus like just your. So if you watch a movie that's emotional or something, do you feel the emotion?
Oh yeah. Oh man, like I can read emotion. I can one of my favorite books is a Million Little Pieces. It's about a drug addict who goes into rehab, and like his whole story, it's so dark and it's so emotional, and like I can feel what he's going through in rehab the whole time I'm reading it. Like I got sucked into it. It was the first book I ever wanted to read and read fully, and just enveloped me, you know. And I can understand why, how your girlfriend feels completely, because Charlie is the person that I want all the information. I have no emotional ties to it. I'm going to break this down to a like factual level. I want to discuss it, and I'm like, no, like I can't talk about that right now.
That
It's
is
like
so
it's too much.
I mean, I wonder if that comes from just the way that we're wired internally. Does that come from childhood? Does that come from experiences we've gone through? Because, yeah, it's just such a different way to experience the world. And it's fascinating because, like, if we could, like, swap brains, it would probably blow your mind and blow my mind to realize that, like, when I watch a video or something like that, I feel nothing, but I can understand, like, I can understand why someone would feel some way, but I don't feel it. And vice versa. If I had your brain and I felt that, I would avoid it at all cost. If I saw a video of someone suffering incredibly and that made me feel all that suffering, then I would just, like, not want to engage with that, which then it's like, how do you tackle these incredibly emotional, difficult, challenging dialogues that we have to have if you're going to have to, it's almost like you have to take on the weight of what is going on in the event to even be able to combat it. And that is tough. This is fascinating. I like I said, I could do a completely other podcast just on that, and
Empaths, how they're dealing with all this.
yeah, I can't even imagine what it has been like to be in the year 2020 and to live under that type of mindset. Because, like I said, I'm spoiled. I don't feel it like that. I just, I've just had to take apart information. I had a super complex problem, whether it was COVID or something. There's a massively complex problem, and I had to dissect it and pull it all apart and figure out the answers. And that's a good way to think about it. I'm just solving problems.
Oh yeah, you can those brainstorming things where you draw a line with a circle.
Yeah,
Mine
exactly.
would look like a circle with a bunch of like squigglies, like an octopus that like led to a rainbow, and like
Connected to past events and this and how you felt during this time.
How did you get there? I don't know.
No, that's wild. And maybe that's what allowed me to stand up and speak up so easily about COVID and so many other things, because I feel no emotion towards it. I'm just looking at a problem.
Right.
I'm looking at, like, where does this information come from? How did they derive mortality statistic? How did they figure out this? What reports are they relying on? It's just information. Imagine if you had to sit down and you just solve a math problem, but you had no feelings about it. It's just a math problem. You just had to figure out what this times this minus this plus this divided by that was. You're just solving something. Versus if all of a sudden, they said, 12 children died in this event and you experienced that plus this, and now you're like trying to get through this difficult thing, experiencing this extreme emotion. That would be super difficult. Or what was a math test in school like when you were under depression or extreme anxiety or things like that?
You mean what is statistics and probabilities like right now?
Yeah.
I'm in a 7-week online taught statistics and probabilities course. I haven't taken math since my junior year, and I'm just like,
perfect example.
oh my gosh, like.
So you're in this mental state where you're trying to deal with one of the roughest worlds in our history, the roughest years that we've lived through. And now all of a sudden you got to try to solve information online, and you got your kids homeschool, and you got this and you got this. That's incredibly different.
It's hard.
But like I said, in a way, I almost envy you. I envy people that do experience a lot of emotion, because in my opinion, emotion makes life more beautiful, both on the positive scale and on the negative scale.
Oh yeah.
I believe that experiencing really bad times gives you a better perception and grasp on this reality. My
valleys might be low and they might be wide, but like these mountains that I get to, there is something about them. I feel like I can enjoy things so much. Getting a coffee
100%.
from Starbucks, I'm like, happy dance. Getting food, a happy dance. Like listening to music while I'm in the kitchen, happy dance. Like, there are so many things that I just get so excited about, so happy about, that the things that I get really sad about kind of go on the back burner. And my partner will say, like it's not that great, or what's so good about it, or, I'm naive about things. And I'm like, I'm okay with being naive. I want everything to be sparkles and unicorns and fairy dust. But because that's what I'd rather
because those are your
look
highs.
at life.
Yeah. So this just clicked to me for the first time in my life. Like, imagine if I'm living my life, and if this is a chart almost like a heartbeat. My ups and downs are very minor. They're very minor. So like I'm in, you know what I mean? Like I'm here like this, but your ups and downs are probably way more, like you feel so much. This is an incredible time. It's a beautiful event. It's really, really special. Or, oh my God, this is so, like you just have a way larger variance in your frequency. You know what I mean? In your ups and downs. So it probably makes you more of an extreme reaction person. Like you said, like, oh, this is the best coffee ever. This is the greatest morning of my life. You know what I mean? And your partner's like, what in the world? It's a completely average morning. But it's like, it's because you literally feel the event so much more, both positive and negative. And I envy that. I think that makes life more beautiful, because even when I reflect on my life and who I am now, I believe that the bad times of my life are so important to me enjoying this life. You know what I mean? Like it gives you a better feel for things. You experience the roller coaster of life. You know what I mean? If everything was all sunshine and rainbows and unicorns and everything like that, and that was the normal state, then where's your highs? Where's your incredible thing in life? If that's your normal? You know what I mean? You almost, the more you feel, the more you appreciate this, because you remember what that valley's like.
Absolutely. You know, and that's the reason I got baptized in 2018 after like just a set of traumatic events. You know, the final straw for me in the military was being drugged while I was with a bunch of soldiers who, they all didn't drug me, and I 100% believe that. But it showed up on my drug test the next day.
You were drugged somehow?
At a bar.
Oh, so you were at a bar previously. Okay.
Mm-hmm. We were at a bar. The next morning we had a drug test. I popped hot for something. I had no clue. I just thought I got blackout drunk, you know, because that's what you do in the military. You drink your feelings away. You know, you get divorce, depression, and alcoholism.
And you're an
from the
empath,
military, right?
And you're somebody that really feels things.
Mm-hmm. So I didn't find out till a month later that there was a drug in my system, and I'm like, I don't take that drug. My Adderall wasn't even in my system because I don't actually have to depend on that every single day. But yeah, I looked up the drug, and it's known for putting in alcoholic beverages to knock a person out, and also causes respiratory distress. So I'm fighting that for 2 whole years of the last 2 years of my military. No advancement in my career, and I was kicked out. I got an honorable discharge. My lawyer did a really great job, but the person that was in charge of my discharge, she was an awful human. She was a major who had multiple complaints about her before, who'd been pushed around the National Guard because she kept getting in trouble with nonsense. And we're like, well, we'll just sweep it under the rug. And we won't say anything. Because she probably knows a lot about other things that, you know, we don't really want out there. So, yeah, my career ended because somebody determined, well, I was a drug user.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, you've had just an incredible run. You know what I mean? From a young woman that had a difficult background, that jumped in the military because you had these hopes and aspirations and dreams, and you had this vision in your mind of what it would become, to getting that shattered, to leaving it, to going back in, to reshaping yourself, to, you know, and like I said, the thing about you is, when you posted that you wanted to do this podcast, that I said, yeah, absolutely, is you bring good energy. You always come in smiling, and like you said, there are rainbows and unicorns, and you're fired up, and that's usually the common denominator I see in people that have gone through pain. So, you know, I guess we can wrap this up here. You and I have spoke for an hour and 15 minutes. So I enjoyed it a ton. I hope that this world gets a little bit better, you know, throughout the rest of the year. Maybe we'll have to do a follow-up podcast after November and see if things really have changed. But I appreciate your time so much. Is anything else that you'd want to say on the podcast, just in general? And we'll wrap it up.
Stand Up Michigan.
Oh.
I mean, heck yeah. I had to represent today. I was like, you know what? I am so glad that I met you, because what you stand for the citizens, like standing up as just a regular citizen of the United States, like those people are what makes me proud to have served. And I like wholly support your education on it, your ability to communicate about it, and your openness about it, even putting on your business on the line, you know? So I'm super glad that we met and we were able to discuss all these things, because they're all important.
Yeah, I've been trying to stay off the COVID topic too much in depth because I feel like I beat the horse to death. Like anyone that wants to know my stance on COVID-19, look at the Fox News interview, look at the 12 other interviews, look at the video that I put up that YouTube pulled down.
Yeah.
You'll figure out where I'm at on that stance. But definitely Stand Up Michigan, Garrett Soldano, Ron Armstrong, Kevin Skinner, all those people that came forward, Carl the Barber, Shelly from Texas. I got to have lunch with both of them. It was incredible. You know what I mean?
I can imagine.
Me, Shelly, Carl, and just a couple other people all had lunch together and just kind of talked about, taking a stance on something. And I got to see why they stood up and they got to see why I did. And like, it made me proud of my country. When I looked around, I saw that there are people with some fight left. Because I tell you what, when it was all going down, like initially, I played it safe. I played caution. I said, okay, I'm not going to put lives in danger for nothing. But once I started dissecting the information without emotion, and that might have been why I was ahead of the curve. It's because, like I said, there was no fear to me. There was no this or that or the other things. I just said, I'm going to look at the information. And once I started dissecting it, I was like, there's more holes in this than Swiss cheese. Like, how can people not see all these problems? And when I started speaking about it, what I realized is people were so crippled by their emotions that they weren't really going deep into the information. They were only getting the little tidbits that they'd get from the news or tiny bits that they read on articles. And they weren't, it's like in a pandemic where all of our lives are possibly on the line and businesses are on the line and millions of people are being unemployed and you're going to have people struggle with suicide and mental depression and sexual abuse and all these things are going to spike. Why wouldn't this be the one time more than ever that regardless of who you are, regardless of your career, your background, anything like that, you're going to dedicate almost all of your available time to dissecting this event because it is the most important thing happening in our lives. Very few people did. What I found is when I actually got into conversations and debate with people that were on the other side, they really didn't know that much.
They just regurgitated what they heard from the media.
Or like on a meme, like, if 3 Skittles were poisoned out of 100, James, would you eat those 3? And I'm like, that is your argument right now for why you back your belief? That's madness. And, I was reaching out to doctors and state representatives and nurses and corroborating all my information and compiling it. Like on April 14th, I knew I was going public against the executive order. On April 14th, I actually put up an emoji status. It's on my Facebook wall. Anyone could go back and look, and no one knew what it meant because it had like a stop hand, it had the middle finger, it had a peace sign, and all that actually breaks down to is if you go back and look at this, it just says 5/1/2020. And then I had like a monkey covering his ears and a handshake. Like, I'm done listening. Like, this is a deal. I promise. On May 1st, I'm going to do something big about this. So I knew as of April 14th, I had compiled enough information that I said, listen, unless people can tell me that this information that I'm providing is incorrect, which I will gladly discuss, this isn't madness. So when I put that YouTube video out, I just kind of Hail Married it. I called my girlfriend that day and I was like, I don't really know how this is going to go. It might go absolutely horrible, but either way, I firmly believe in what I'm doing and I believe in being the type of person that stands up in difficult times. And like, if I'm going to face scrutiny or things like that, I welcome it. I welcome it. If you want to attack me as a person or my character.
You're a horrible person. You won't wear a mask.
Yeah, if you want to attack, that's totally fine. But there's a reason you're not debating my information if you don't. Because if I put out a 20-minute YouTube video challenging the official narrative, you should be able to take that thing apart effortlessly if it's bad information. But nobody did.
No, we're just going to call you bad names.
Nobody challenged the information. And that made me realize, like, wait a second. And then a doctor with just under 1 million subscribers shared it, and all of a sudden the video started blowing up, and then YouTube took it down. And I was like, wait a second. I'm like, wait a second. Porn can be online. Every conspiracy theory in the world can be online. Murder can be online. Yeah, I watched a guy die on Facebook Live.
Pedophilia can be online.
All of this can be online. But me sitting down, questioning information in a time where information is absolutely vital can't be online. It was fascinating. So, like I said, I enjoyed this conversation so much today. I hope people tune in. I hope we enjoy this. And the beautiful thing is this is a record permanently. Like, throughout time, this conversation will exist. And let's say these podcasts blow up and get huge. We permanently recorded a glimpse of 2020 in that one day we can say, hey, do you remember how messed up 2020? Excellent. Pull that podcast up. So thank you so much for your time today, Marissa. It was a pleasure, and we'll wrap this up. So anyone listening, this was the Mental Warfare Podcast out of the Michigan Institute of Athletics. I'm James Gray. Come check us out, Brighton, Michigan. We give everybody a free week to any program that you want to try here, and our website is instituteofathletics.com. So, again, thank you so much for being here, and we'll wrap this up.